we can measure and we can assess. Whether or not it's neurological in origin is more difficult to directly assess and one that we more infer because it's often unexpected. So I'm really going to focus on sort of the difficulties that we see. One of the things that really resonated too about this is this focus on being able to identify it early. And if we don't identify it and do something early, this has serious long-term consequences. One of the things that I really resonate to this is a vision that this can be successfully treated. We can do something about it. These represent skills that when we identify early, we are able to prevent. And if we can prevent, that is much more cost-effective than waiting until it is a problem and remediating. So to me, this is very much a vision of prevention and early intervention, early identification. It's a vision of doing something about it and preventing those outcomes. And those are the things that really thrill me. We were apparently muted for a bit at the beginning. We missed a little bit of that induction. So just to do a very fast recap, my apologies to our live studio audience. Hello and welcome, and I'm just really excited to be here talking about Senate Bill 33 and early literacy things and topics that are relevant to that. So we have a live audience, and we also have a TV audience that I will be talking to and addressing. Audience. So I was noting how very excited I am to be here and to be sharing with you. And I'm just beside myself with excitement about Senate Bill 33. And I was sort of beginning by highlighting some of the aspects of this bill that just have me so excited and that I'm going to play out as we begin. And I'm really thrilled by a focus on early identification and prevention, early intervention, successful treatment. And by doing so, we can be more effective with more students in a more cost-effective way. And I really resonate to all of those areas. Some important features that I'm going to really be talking from in Senate Bill 33. And I'm going to have a whole lot of really good slides to share with you. And I have these in a handout that I believe we will be able to post and make available to everybody. So, and Danielle is nodding vigorously at me as I say that. So we will have the handout of these posted, so you don't actually have to record all the slides. That'll be available. But some of the features, a focus on universal screening, especially K2, and for grade 3 and higher, using DIBELS. And the universal screening is really important to identify students who may have more hidden indicators of risk that we can identify and target and provide services to. A focus on response to intervention or response to instruction. Everybody has different visions of what the I stands for in RTI. And doing response to intervention or instruction in part to really identify those students who have dyslexia or who are at risk or have markers of dyslexia. So RTI here is, I'm envisioning this as a part of our identification procedures, that one of the hallmarks of a significant problem in learning to read is both low skills and difficulty responding to generally effective instruction. So RTI is a part of the identification. But But it's not just for identification. RTI is also a way to make a change in outcomes, to provide that intervention early, to match what a student needs to the instruction that we are providing. And it's about matching that support with an escalating system of support. In other words, we ought to be able to provide some help to students who need it. If they're not making adequate progress, we need to be able to provide more help to those students. If they're still not making adequate progress, we need to be able to escalate and provide intensive support to those students. So it's moving from support to intervention to therapy, and I'm trying to communicate this idea of an escalation in the support that we have based upon their response. In doing this, assessment is going to be the backbone of this system. It's going to help us to identify and target students, identify and target what we do to support those students, identify and target when our support is working and when we need more. So there's going to be a decision model based upon assessment to make decisions to accomplish all of these things. In order for, this is one of the things about the bill that just, there are many aspects that I'm just all smiles and wiggles about as I look at the bill. But one of them is an explicit focus on the fidelity of the assessment. If we are not doing the assessment with fidelity, using standardized procedures, then I don't know what the scores mean. And I can't use that to make good decisions about students. So critical to this is the assessment and doing it with fidelity. And that assessment doesn't just focus on, any old right stuff. It's got to focus on the key ideas, the big ideas, the essential features, the basic early literacy skills. The phonological and phonemic awareness, sound symbol recognition, alphabet knowledge, decoding, rapid naming, and encoding skills. Decoding is sort of looking at written words and getting spoken words. Encoding is taking spoken words and getting to written. So these are really, it's a two-way street. And as you understand one, you understand the other. It's that linkage that we are headed for. And you notice I call these the basic early literacy skills. And in fact, this is what DIBELS is designed to do. It's designed to provide dynamic. That's the D in DIBELS, is they're dynamic. So I'm measuring not just where a student is, but also their progress or their response. Yes? And these are designed to be indicators. That's the I in DIBELS. And it's not a complete comprehensive diagnostic assessment. It would take too long for us to do that for universal screening. I need brief indicators that tell me, and they are dynamic indicators of what? Of the basic early literacy skills, the basic early literacy skills. So you can see, you might have a sense of why Roland is so excited about this. And this one slide about Senate Bill 33, we've just named the essential things that are why DIBELS is DIBELS. Cool? So part of this, now I'm going to play off of RTI. Right. What's an RTI? So that, well, RTI, this is a little bit humorous because there is no universally accepted definition of what RTI is. And RTI appears to mean somewhat different things to different people and is interpreted in different ways, some of which I'm really excited about and some of which I'm kind of excited about. So sometimes they miss certain features of it. But this is what we would generally agree would be essential elements of RTI. And I'm taking this from the National Center for Response to Intervention, and it's sort of a key resource around RTI. And they say there's no specific definition. There are some essential elements. It includes screening of children in the general curriculum to identify those who need more support. And you can see the linkage to Senate bill. Tiered instruction of increasing intensity, and you can see that escalating system of support. It involves evidence-based instruction, doing something about it, that's something that is evidence-based. It involves, all RTI involves close monitoring of student progress. And I'm especially going to focus here and really drill down because this is a critical part of RTI. This is a critical part of the Senate bill as we look at evaluating response. It's a critical part of what DIBELS is designed to do. It also involves making decisions based upon that information, and I would add decisions that improve student outcomes. So I'm really going to focus this from a decision-making perspective, from looking at assessment to make these decisions. So how does progress monitoring work? And this is taken from the National Center on Student Progress Monitoring that I accessed on the 24th. So that's a direct quote from them. So to implement progress monitoring, the student's current level of performance is a starting point. Goals are identified. It's not just monitoring progress. You need a goal. You need to know where it is that you're headed toward. Students' academic performance is measured on a frequent basis, weekly or monthly. And I would say the more worried you are about the student, the more frequently you should measure. Whatever progress monitoring you're using should be able to monitor at least weekly. I make a point of that because there are some tests out there that have Form A and Form B, and they say, well, we can monitor progress. You assess at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, and you're monitoring their progress over. It's like, not so much. Really, I want to know more frequently, are we making adequate progress? Because with the more frequent progress, I can say, do I need to make a change and escalate the support that we're providing? Notice how all these themes tie together. And I'm looking at progress toward meeting the student's goals. Whose goals? The student's goals. These are individual goals that we set by looking at expected and actual rates of progress. And then critical to this is doing something about it. When we see a student is not making adequate progress, we make a decision. We increase the support that we are providing based upon the student's progress on a weekly basis toward the goals that they meet. You can tell my heart is just all at Twitter about this. This is why Ruth and I actually started in this business. And this is not just, this is not just a good idea because it's like RTI. This is not just the law because it's in Senate Bill 33. This is also extraordinarily powerful for changing students' outcomes. And I want to, for a moment, just play off of John Hattie. And I don't know if you've encountered this book by John Hattie, Visible Learning, a synthesis of over 800 meta-analyses related to achievement. So the idea of this is we build our knowledge from doing research. And any one research project might support or not support what it is that we are doing. And so I always look for the research, but I'm always a little bit cautious about research because there's always some other research study that is being done. So at another level of confidence is what is called a meta-analysis. And in a meta-analysis, what they do is they look at all of the research studies that have been done on a particular topic, and they look at the average effect size across multiple research studies. So I have a bit more confidence in a meta-analysis because it's based on multiple studies. Well, John Hattie has taken this idea to another level. Each meta-analysis is based on many research studies. His conclusions are based on 800 meta-analyses. Now, this is kind of like meta-analyses, isn't it? And he's not even being like a secret agent about this. He's not even being meta-Harry about it. Danielle's groaning as I say that. But what he's done is published this study, this book of over 800 of these. And he looked at all different kinds of things that impact on student achievement. Student effects, teacher effects, teaching effects, what we do, curriculum effects, school effects, home effects. And you notice I'm really especially interested in the things that we can do something about. Student effects are very big, but we have limited ability to impact that, right? We teach the students we have, not the students we wish we had, to paraphrase Donald Rumsfeld. It's embarrassing to do so, but we teach the students that we have. So I'm especially interested in these effects. And he looked at 138 different influences on student achievement, and he put them all in order. He ranked them all: first most important effect, second, third. What do you think the third biggest effect that we could have on student achievement is? Now, I will tell you that number one was a student effect. Fine, whatever, I'm less interested in that. Number two, actually, what I dealt with young children in preschool age, was about Piagetian developmental levels, was number two. Number three, guess which one was number three biggest impact we could have on student achievement? Be thinking about that. And I want to tell you how he summarizes it. Hattie summarizes this with an effect size that's labeled D. Right, what's a D? How do I interpret a D? What does D mean? And he summarizes it with a picture like a speedometer right here, and he puts the D sort of on that. So, and he talks about things that would be developmental effects. They're in the yellow zone right here. And here's my speedometer indicator is the arrow on my speedometer in the yellow, and that would be developmental effects. And he says that's probably what students would do if there was no school. This is just like they're just growing and developing. You get some effects from that, whatever. This would be things like diet. And he's done, this is a meta-analysis of the studies of diet. It does have effect. Very little effect. It's hard to get very emotional about that effect. Perceptual motor programs like training to walk a balance beam, probably not a bad thing, but this doesn't make very much of a difference, right? So he would describe these as developmental effects, about which you bet from not doing anything at all. He also talks about typical teacher effects. Now, you notice my arrow is in the green, and the green area is teacher effects. And this is doing things like inductive teaching, having homework. Homework is like a good thing to do. You give the students additional chances to practice. So it has D in the range of about 0.15 to about 0.4. And this is like regular teaching things that we could do. Those are good places to be. He also talks about, he calls them reverse effects. This is where the effect is in the wrong direction. Instead of making things better, this makes problems worse. Like, doctor, it hurts when I do this. Don't do that. That's these types of effects. And you notice my speedometer arrow is in the red zone. A negative effect means we're making the problem worse and not better. This would be things like grade retention. Did you know that grade retention is more likely to take any problem that you have and make it worse instead of better? Overall, it shows a negative effect size of a minus 0.16. About equivalent to television. More television has that negative effect size is the idea. What we really want are things in the lose zone. These are things that are even more effective than our regular teaching. These are going to be between 0.4 and 1.2. They're the things that have the biggest impact on student outcomes. What do you think number 3 is going to be? Now, you've been thinking about this for a little bit. You have got a thought what that might be. Hattie found that formative evaluation and progress monitoring is the 3rd biggest effect that we can have on student outcomes, with an effect size of plus 0.90. Whoa. What this is saying, this isn't even like a specific intervention or specific instruction or specific curriculum. Progress monitoring and formative evaluation could be added to whatever instruction or intervention or curriculum that you're doing. I say progress monitoring is like chocolate. I don't know if you knew this, but this reference is actually to the 3 laws of chocolate. Did you know that there are actually 3 laws to chocolate? I thought chocolate, no rules, right? But there are actually 3. There are three rules, 3 laws of chocolate. The first rule of chocolate is more is always better. Yeah. Right. Perhaps not eaten all at once. But you can always save it for later as long as you have more chocolate. The second rule of chocolate is there is no problem so severe that the addition of chocolate doesn't make it be just a little bit better. I'm not saying it goes away, right? There are some serious problems, but if you add chocolate, it improves the situation. This is like chocolate, like reading, I say. Reading is the same way. What do you want? Reading skills or more reading skills? More is always better. There are lots of problems that our students face. The addition of reading proficiency makes all of those problems just a bit better. Progress monitoring, when added to any instruction or intervention, makes it more effective. It's one of the biggest things that we can do to improve outcomes. Should we add this to general education? Well, do you want more effective outcomes? Should we add this to special education? Well, do you want more effective outcomes? Do you notice, I should probably mention the 3rd rule of chocolate as well. Like chocolate, like reading, and the 3rd rule of chocolate also applies to reading. The 3rd rule of chocolate is Life is short. Eat your chocolate first. It's true. It's just like reading, right? The school day is short. Teach your reading first. That you do the most important thing first. I also want to call attention to the way this is worded. There's two parts to this: progress monitoring and formative evaluation. These are two pieces. And progress monitoring means I have that information on a regular basis about how the student is doing. Formative evaluation or formative assessment or formative decision making means I am using that information to change what I do. If I am just assessing and I'm not using that information, I'm doing progress monitoring without the formative evaluation piece. I would talk about that as just admiring the problem. Boy, look at Elisa's low. Oh my, look how low she is. Boy, she is still low. Look at that. Look at how low Elisa is. I'm admiring the problem. I'm not doing anything about it. A little-known secret is that I grew up in Iowa. And in Iowa, they would have a saying relevant to this. They would say, just weigh in the hogs, don't make them fatter. Pardon my sense of humor, it's an Iowa background that applies. But if all you're doing is the assessment and I'm not using it to change what I do, my expectations for impact will be limited. So this is progress monitoring and using the data to make decisions. Effect size in the blue, plus 0.9. More effective if I have a goal, if I graph progress, if I have decision rules, and if I provide feedback were found. And this is a picture. This is actually from Amplify and the M-Class data system. And what I can do is I can look at where we are in September. I can look at where I want to be at the end of the year. Here is my benchmark goal. Here is a danger zone ready for danger. If I can, this student is in the danger zone at the beginning of the year. If I set a goal that is at or above benchmark for the end of the year, here is my aim line. I can look at how we're doing with the instruction I'm provided, and this tells me I need to make change if I want to reach that goal. My point is, these are Dibble's scores. This is a way of using that and reporting the progress monitoring. I am making decisions. The purple vertical lines show me that I'm using this to make decisions about outcomes. I have a goal. Goals, graphing, decision rules, feedback. That's what goes into this D of 0.9 and can make that even more powerful and even more effective. Dibbles is designed to do this. Senate Bill 33 is calling for this. You can just see why my little heart is just beating very good. I'm actually patting close to the microphone when I do that. My apologies to the TV audience for that. But you certainly got a pounding heart as I did that. They also found that whenever you're providing feedback, it increases the effectiveness of what you do. Not as much as the progress monitoring formative evaluation, but it's still a plus 0.73. This is a really big thing that we can do is provide feedback. And here I'm talking about feedback to the teacher. As a teacher, is what I'm doing working? This is really important to me because if it's not working, I need to hunker down and do a bit more. I grew up in Iowa. We talk about hunkering down in Iowa and doing more. If it is working, I want to keep doing it and not change. I also need feedback to students. Student, here's where we are. This is where we want to get to. Here is how we're doing. We need to work together to accomplish this goal. Hattie describes features of effective feedback, and I've adapted this figure from Hattie, my adaptation is in parentheses here as we do this. But he talks about feed should address 3 questions. Feed up. Where am I going? We need to have a goal. Feed back. How am I going? What progress am I making toward that? Feed forward. What do I do next? Do I need to make a change? Do I need to keep doing with whatever it is that I'm doing? And these are what Hattie has really targeted as effective features of feedback. And you can sort of see that feedback model to teachers and to students that we can look at, right? Where am I? What is my goal? How am I doing? Do I need to make a change? That's the key features of the feedback. He also targets just having a goal. Having a goal of where you want to get to is in itself a really powerful piece. It's in the blue. It's a 0.56 exercise from Hattie. And this really highlights, and you'll notice, a goal is a huge theme that is showing up over and over. Goals show up when I'm providing feedback. They show up when I'm looking at progress monitoring and formative evaluation. They were showing up in progress monitoring, in RTI when we do it. So this is a really powerful, goals are a really powerful part of what we do. I resonate to Michelangelo, who says, the greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. I think what he's saying to us is, it's important for your goals to be ambitious. You're better off setting an ambitious goal and being a little bit shy than you are setting a trivial goal and reaching it. So I believe he's arguing for setting an ambitious goal. I would also argue that our goals need to be attainable. I do not want to set a goal that is just high in the sky. All of our students will be world-class readers. Yeah, right. I mean, I share the goal. I mean, this is a laudable goal. I could really get behind this, but it's not going to happen this year. Maybe in 5 or 10, but it's not going to happen. Right. And when a goal is simply unattainable, I disengage. I know they set this goal, but I know, not happening, so whatever, right? It no longer impacts me. So I need to have a sense that it is indeed attainable, but ambitious, but attainable. There's somewhat of a tension there, yes? The more ambitious it is, the less attainable it is. The more attainable it is, the less ambitious it is. So what do you want? Roland, what do you want? Do you want to be attainable or do you want to be ambitious? Yes, I want to be both. Oh, how can we do that? What a good question. I also want our goal to be meaningful. I want to set a goal that's going to make a difference. Not a goal that's going to be trivial. We are in this business to change lives. Yes? To build futures. I got to tell you, even now I get a little, the hair on the back of my neck kind of raises when I say that. It's why I went into education at the very beginning, all these years ago. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to change lives. I wanted to build futures. This ties to the core reasons why I do what I do. Our goals should be meaningful, they should be important, they should change the future. And I want to have evidence that the goals actually do that. Well, okay, now I'm breathing. You can tell my heart rate is up, my breathing is up, right? I'm excited about this, can get behind this. How does DIBBLS fit in to all of this? DIBBLS, Progress Monitoring, RTI, this is why my colleague Ruth Kaminsky and I started playing this business so many years ago. What are we at now, 24, 25 years we've been doing this? Ruth and I started working on DIBBLS, and we thought, oh, this will be a 5-year project 25 years ago. So we haven't gotten tired of it yet. But this really starts, these had to do with our core vision. And in our very first DIBBLS research proposal, we said research is needed on curriculum-based measurement procedures that are valid and reliable for monitoring progress, evaluating effectiveness of instruction, in other words, evaluating a student's response, is it being effective for that student, and identifying kindergarten and first grade students who are at risk for academic problems. It's not so much the statement that is important. What's important is we were saying that in 1988. This is why we built DIBBLS. This vision that I have been articulating is the DNA in DIBBLS. This is the core challenge that we set ourselves, our core vision as we develop DIBBLS. So this is a key part of what we do. We have articulated this in the outcomes-driven model. I would say that this is a response to intervention model. This is a specific model of making RTI decisions. There are different models that people use for RTI. For example, an alternative decision model would be called the problem-solving model. In a problem-solving model, you begin with a problem, and it's a sequence of decisions that you make to solve or reduce or provide support to address that problem. I really like a problem-solving model. My concern with the problem-solving model is it starts with a problem. By the time it is a problem, it's too late for us to prevent it. It's not too late for us to do something about it, but our opportunity to prevent it has passed because it is a problem. Our outcomes-driven model is really an extension of a problem-solving model, but focused on prevention, early intervention, escalating support to do something about it. There are 5 steps in this model, and these steps frame the decision that we are making as an educator. I have to tell you, teachers, educators, principals, coaches often are confused in doing RTI and implementing RTI. Why are educators often confused while doing RTI? Because they're not sure what decision they're making. You're gathering data, but I'm not sure what I'm using it for, what decision am I making. A key part of this is to organize our decisions into 5 steps. And we actually issue to everybody who's using the outcomes-driven model sort of a concrete manipulative to help you remember those 5 steps. Everybody has one, and just in case, frequently we issue 2, so you can. So our first step is universal screening to identify support, validating that need for support, planning and implementing, evaluating, and reviewing outcomes. This is our model, and you see it's a circular model that I repeat periodically, and in fact, there's a circle within the circle. A circle within a circle, a spiral, a wheel within a wheel. Dusty Springfield come to mind anyway. Oh, sorry. So what I want to do next is I want to provide an overview and a framework of this model and how we use this model to make decisions. This is not just about assessing, it's about assessing to make decisions. This is not just about making decisions, it's about making a special kind of decisions. Decisions that improve outcomes for students. So I'm really going to be focused on student outcomes. This is all about increasing student outcomes. As I illustrate this model, I'm going to illustrate this using the progress report from M-Class, and I'm illustrating this actually using Dibbles. This is actually grade 3, but it's really not about grade 3. It's not about the particular measure. It's about a way of thinking and using the data to make decisions that improve outcomes. So I'm going to really zoom in on this part. See how I've zoomed in on that part, and I'm going to use that in the discussion. So here is my outcome-driven model, and here are the 5 steps of that model. And for the first step, I'm going to focus on identifying need for support. This is going to occur at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the semester. And I could think of this as going through a cycle, and that cycle could be every semester or it could be every year. And you could sort of think about it either way. I'm going to frame it here in terms of a year, but in terms of a semester would make equal sense to me. So this is a picture of one student's progress from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So it goes from September through June is the idea of this picture. If your academic year goes from August to May, you would simply adjust this. So it's really the idea of this that I'm trying to go for here. So at the beginning of the year, I'm going to assess each student. This is my universal screening part. I want it to be fast. I want it to be efficient. I want it to target those basic early literacy skills. I want to know very quickly, is this student on track? And here in the green zone would be at or above benchmark at the beginning of the year. Are they a little bit below benchmark? Here's the yellow zone. That means I have some concern. The odds are about 50-50 of reaching the goal. I might want to provide some targeted support. Or are they in the danger zone? Below the red line is below the cut point for risk. This is where I am very concerned about that student. So at the beginning of the year, I'm going to get this quick screening, efficient measure using indicators of basic early literacy skills. And in this one, it looks like this student may be in the danger zone. See that? I've got one data point, and she is in the red zone. So I look at that and I say, you know, Jessica may need some additional support. If she is going to reach the goal at the end of the year, Jessica may need support. This is very important information for us to have at the beginning of the year. But remember, this is how Jessica did on one day. This is a very efficient assessment. It took maybe 7 or 8 minutes for me to do this assessment with Jessica. It is one-on-one, so I get to really see with my own eyes what Jessica is doing. But sometimes students at the beginning of the year are having a bad day or a bad few minutes, or, oh, you mean I was supposed to bring my glasses today? Oh, right? And so I need to be aware that there may be an unusual day or unusual conditions, and this may not really represent Jessica's skills. Notice I said she may need additional support. The identify needs for support should be fast, it should be efficient, it should be universal is the idea. But my second step in the model is going to be to validate that need for support. And when I validate that need for support, I'm going to retest Jessica on different days, under different conditions. I'm going to use alternate forms of the assessment. Yes, Jessica, I really want you to bring your glasses. Would you bring your glasses tomorrow? And I retested her with the glasses. The glasses didn't help very much. It probably wasn't the glasses, was it? Right? Well, maybe it was because it was like after lunch. She doesn't do as well after lunch. Okay, well, let's test her in the morning. She did a little bit better, but yeah, it's not about the morning, right? At this point, I have a pattern of performance on different days, on different forms, under different conditions, and my point is I want to rule out little reasons for poor performance. I really want to say, am I pretty sure she's going to need some academic support? And I look at that and I go, yep, I'm pretty sure. What would I do if I said, oh, I'm just really not quite sure. I think it was because Roland tested her. You know, that Roland, he's, our kids are kind of anxious about strangers, and that Roland, he's a little bit more strange than most. And, yeah, if she's tested by the classroom teacher, I'm sure she would do better. What if I thought she just should be retested with the classroom teacher and she'd be fine? What could I do? Retest with the classroom teacher. And, you know, if I retest with the classroom teacher and she scores up in here, I would go, okay, maybe it was just a Roland effect. But if I retest with the classroom teacher and her scores down here, at some point I go, okay, all right, I get it. I think Jessica may need some support. So I've illustrated with 2 different retests. You could do 3, you could do 4. Wouldn't it be nice if you had an assessment system that had like 20 alternate forms in it? Oh, Dibbles has got 20 alternate forms of the assessment. I got to tell you, if you do 20 alternate forms and you have a pattern of performance and she's still low, by golly, she's low. Now, I don't really want to use all of them for this step, but the idea is I have other ones available. So notice how I'm going step by step through the model. And my next step is to make a plan and to implement that plan. A critical part of a plan is to establish a goal and an aim line and to select and implement targeted interventions. So I'm going to set a goal. I want my goal to be meaningful, right? I want to make a difference. Right now, Jessica is in the red zone. What if I set a goal that by the end of the year, she would be in the green zone? So here's, by May, June, I want her to reach the benchmark goal. Here, the odds are against reaching future goals unless we do something to change the odds, here the odds are in favor of achieving future goals. What if we could change the prediction of the future for Jessica? This is how we build futures. So I'm going to set a goal right there, and I've set a goal with sort of a subtle indication with a bullseye that I want to be able to hit. And if I hit any part of that bullseye, I'm in the green zone, is why I placed it there. Then I'm going to set an aim line. This tells me, the aim line tells me, week by week, where do I need to get to in order to be making adequate progress toward that goal. I need the aim line so I can make week by week decisions about how effective my instruction and my support is being. My next step, so I have a plan, I am implementing that plan. My part of that plan is to select and implement a targeted intervention and instruction. I recommend as a powerful starting point something that would be an evidence-based intervention, that would be, sometimes it's called a scientific research-based intervention. This is an intervention that has been developed with the principles of effective instruction, effective curriculum that have been shown to work, or that itself as an intervention has been shown to work and shown to be effective. I'm not saying it's effective for every student, but I am saying it's got evidence that it's generally effective for most students. This is a really good place to start. Start with something you think is going to work. So this vertical line, this means I'm not just doing the same thing. This means I'm not just doing a little thing. Well, I'm going to give Jessica preferential seating. I'm going to move her to the front of the class. Oh yeah, that's going to do it. No, I'm really doing something, right? I talk about preferential seating because this is one of the reasons that we used to talk about pre-referral intervention. Pre-referral intervention was all the rage for a while, and then it sort of got real quiet. What do you think the most high-frequency intervention was for pre-referral interventions? Preferential seating, yeah, sit them in the front of the class. Oh, yeah, that'll do it. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually doing something with instruction that is involved here. And there's a variety of things that could be chosen. Choose one and do it is sort of the idea. Next step. So I have a plan. I have implemented that plan. My next step is to evaluate that plan. This means it is generally effective for most students. Yes, but is it effective for Jessica? Notice these are two different questions that I'm asking. Does it generally work for most students? The odds are in my favor if I choose it. But also, is it working for Jessica? These are two different levels of the discussion. So my next step is to evaluate that effect. Is it working for Jessica? And if it's not, to modify my plan and implement the modified plan. So I'm really here in this evaluate and modify, talking about this whole cycle that I do right here. I sometimes call this like the spin cycle. This is like my washer and dryer in my little apartment. You remember like the stacked washer and dryer, right? And like the washer has a cycle, and So this is like my spin cycle. Whoop, 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 and I might do this multiple times within this larger cycle is the idea. I do this until I find what works for Jessica is the idea. So I'm assessing Jessica. This is called progress monitoring. I'm checking up on her once a week or once every 2 weeks. How's she doing? Okay. A little bit up and down, but up enough? No. If we keep going like this, how long will it take Jessica to reach the goal? Forever. Right? But this is a scientific research-based intervention. There is evidence that says that this intervention works for most students. But it's not working for Jessica. But I like this intervention. It's really fun to do. I know how to do it. I'm really skilled in it. I really like doing this. But it's not working for Jessica. But it's working for the other kids in the class. All the other kids in Jessica's group, they're all going up just great. But it's not working for Jessica. If I want Jessica to reach the goal, I will need to do something different. I will need to change what it is that I do. This says, this is, and notice how they're all black and they turn red. That says, pay attention. I don't, if it's just 1 below the aim line, could have been a bad day. If it's 2 below the aim line, I'm kind of worried, but, I might sort of hunker down, try to do a bit better. If it's 3 below the aim line, dude, we've got a pattern. Right? It's a pattern, and now I can make a decision, and my decision says, we need to do something different. And it doesn't matter that it's research-based, that the other kids like it, that I have great fun doing it. If I don't change something, it's not going to work for Jessica. So this line says, I'm going to make a change. What should I do? Should I throw out the whole intervention? I actually think that's a very dangerous approach to take. I think these are some of the most dangerous words I've heard in education. I tried that and it didn't work. Have you heard that before? Yes. Those are very dangerous words. I want to know first, did we really try it the right way? These scientific research-based interventions are often require a lot of practice, a lot of skills to implement. They're often scripted. This is not designed so that you do the script in a monotone. I am going to show you a letter, you tell me the sound of the student is check, please, I'm out of here. Right? These require training, they require practice, they require coding to do in a way. One of my heroes is Anamika Gali, and if Anamika Gali is in the TV audience, kudos to Anamika. But she goes through the way she would provide that instruction, and within about 2 sentences, I am hyperventilating. There's so much energy in that instruction. That's a part of intervention fidelity. Are we doing it in the way that it is designed to be done? A first thing I want to check is the intervention fidelity. Also the amount of time. Well, I'm doing this research-based intervention and I'm doing it with fidelity for 5 minutes a week. That might not be enough time to really make a difference in that student. Are we doing it in enough time? Are we doing it in a small enough group or a targeted enough group? If all of the other students in Jessica's group are making adequate progress, but Jessica is not, what do? Do I keep going at this level? I'm sure Jessica will catch up. oh, I know, I'll really drop back and meet Jessica's level. I'm sure the other students will stay with me and not get bored. Neither one of those is very plausible, does it? So I may need to rearrange my grouping. Jessica may be a part of a small group and be more homogeneous with students with similar levels of skills. These are probably the biggest 3 things to look at when you're changing a research-based intervention. So I make a change, and I look at how Jessica is doing now. What do you think? Should I make another change, or should I keep going? Keep doing what I'm doing. Hold the course. But it's not as much fun to do it that way. I mean, I'm all in favor of having fun when you teach. You notice that I kind of do. But having Jessica making adequate progress is a really big deal. That is our most important consideration. Then find a way to have fun within that, I would say. I am an advocate of having fun. The last step of this model is to review outcomes. And by this I mean being a reflective professional. I think it is important for us to periodically stop and reflect upon our practice. This is very hard to do. I got to tell you, I teach graduate statistics, and a whole lot of my life is occupied. Am I ready to teach tomorrow? Right? But every once in a while, I just step back and say, so overall, how's it working? Is my system working? Am I making decisions in the right way? I'm supporting kids to reach that goal. This reviewing outcomes is about being a reflective professional. If we're a professional and we're not reflecting, it's very hard to comb your hair. I just have to say, if you're not, and B, unless you're named Edward, it could have social anyway. If you don't have a reflection, anyway. Yeah. So periodically stop and review. So this is our model of building futures by changing outcomes is the essential idea. And I'm very visual. I don't know if you've missed that, but I'm very visual. I have visuals that sort of communicate to each of these stories. And this whole outcomes-driven model, if I had to talk about Dibbles in one picture, I would choose this picture. It's all happening in this one picture. This is the core vision. And if I were to make that be even more, it sounds like it's coming down out there. If you hear the sirens going off, we will adapt and adjust. But this is a picture showing the coast of Oregon. So we're looking off the coast of Oregon. Now, I know this is real and salient to you in Arkansas, but you can sort of imagine going sailing off the coast of Oregon. And I live an hour from the coast, and in all honesty, mostly this is imaginary for me as well. I'm a fantasy sailor. But we're going sailing off of the coast of Oregon, and there are pocket bays, which is where you go to park your boat. You can tell how much of a sailor I am. Park your boat. This is our bay. This is our safe harbor. This is where it's safe to dock your boat. The coastline of Oregon is beautiful and dramatic. Big cliffs, rocks, booming surf. It's really dangerous to go ashore any place other than our safe harbor, right? You don't want to end up on the rocks out there. Sometimes when we're going for a sail, the sky is blue, that I can see forever, life is good, I know where I am, I know where my port is, I can find my way back without difficulty, I know it's going to be okay. This is kind of like when I'm teaching in K, first and second grade, and I know where my student is, I know we're going to reach the goal, life is good, yes, I like teaching under those conditions. But sometimes when I'm sailing off the coast of Oregon, the fog rolls in. And when the fog rolls in, my excursion becomes very frightening and very dangerous. No exaggeration. Lives are lost off the coast of Oregon under these conditions. Futures are lost here. Where am I? Where is my port? I can't even see my hand. How do I find my way back to my place of safety? If I end up in a place, it's not a pretty picture, right? I know how dangerous that is. I need a way to make good decisions so I end up at my port. When we're going sailing, we have a technology to help. This is an incredible technology. It's called the GPS. And if I turn on my GPS, my global positioning system, it's designed to tell me where I am, where my port is, what course I should follow, when I need to change. So I turn on my GPS and I say, where am I? And the GPS says, you are right here. It sort of shows up like that. It gives you that. It says, okay, here's right where you are. Okay, now I know where I am. But that's only a little bit of what I need to know, right? It says I'm in the middle of the ocean. I'm still really worried, aren't I? This is valuable, but this is limited information. The famous philosopher, Buckaroo Banzai, could have done this well. Do you know Buckaroo Banzai? Famous philosopher. He says, no matter where you go, there you are. There you are. I actually had an undergraduate stop me at the University of Oregon the other day and said, where am I? And I thought, I'm a doctor of philosophy. I can do this. I told him, you're right here. I don't think he was impressed. Mini philosophy lesson. Anyway, so I really want to know, where is my safe harbor? And the GPS says, here is your port. Here's your safe harbor. If you can make that port, you will be safe. Well, what course should I follow to get there? And the GPS says, go north by northeast for 2 miles, and you will arrive at your safe harbor. So I say, okay, I've got a plan. I know where I am. I know where to go to reach my place of safety. So I point the boat north by northeast, and I start going in that direction. Life is good. No worries. All my plans work exactly the way they're designed to. Maybe I better check. GPS, how am I doing? GPS says here is your actual course. But I did what the plan said. I pointed the boat in the right direction. I'm following the plan. What happened? I don't know. Something unexpected. Maybe it's the wind, maybe it is the current. But the one thing I can tell you is, if you keep going like this, you will end up on the rocks. What do you think I ought to do? Change course. When do you think I ought to do that? Right now! That's what Dibbles is. Dibbles is the GPS for educators. Dibbles tells us, where are we? Am I in a safe place? Am I in a dangerous place? It tells me, where do I need to get to? What is our goal? Where is my safe harbor? Where is my port? It tells me what trajectory, or what pathway, or what course, or what aim line do I need to follow. That dotted green line tells me week by week, am I on course? Am I going to reach that goal? Progress monitoring tells me, how am I doing? Am I on track to reach that goal, or do I need to make a change in the support that I'm providing to reach that goal? Just progress monitoring, that's just admiring the problem. It's progress monitoring with formative evaluation, with the change that improves outcomes for students. It is both of those together. Before I continue on, what questions do you have? And I welcome questions throughout, not just when I prompt for them, but this is an explicit prompt for a question. And I would welcome both questions you might have and questions you think a friend of yours might have who's not actually here, or a question from the studio audience, from the TV audience that you might put forward and ask.
Are you always going to be on grade level, or do you off grade level some of these children?
Boy, what an important question to ask. Thank you very much. So the question is, am I always measuring on grade level, or are there conditions when I would measure off grade level? So, and the short answer to that is yes, there are conditions I would assess using out of grade level materials. If this is a picture of a third grader, there are conditions when I might use second grade or first grade materials for monitoring progress. Now, the long answer to that question actually involves some thinking and some nuances as I make that choice. I'll give you a little bit of that, but only a bit. And really, this is part of our data interpretation workshop. It's part of what Dibble's Next Mentor is trained to provide and support. Assessment manual and Dibble's survey will provide additional information on this decision. The basic idea is, for Jessica, she's a third grader. Here I'm at that, 30, 40 correct words per minute. This is a level where I can monitor her progress in third grade material, and I would be able to make good decisions about her progress for instruction. But some of your third graders will be down like 5 or 10 words correct per minute. Yes? And if I am down in this level, if I have a third grader at this level, frequent progress monitoring will just be discouraging for the student, discouraging for the teacher, and won't help me to make decisions. I'm so far out of where I need to be to that course that I need an intermediate step. For a student here in third grade material, I will need to be able to drop back to easier material and meet an earlier goal before I can meet that third grade goal. This may be dropping back to second material or to first grade material, or if I have a third grader whose skills are this low, I need to drop back to the alphabetic principle. I'm worried about letter sound correspondence for that student, and for decoding skills, this is that student, make no mistake about it, that student has a severe problem. And it's most likely going to be located in the phonological processing, in the decoding skills and the word identification, decoding, accurate reading of words. So I will probably need to drop back to that level for that student. It's a nuanced discussion and requires professional skills, professional judgment as we do that, but I would encourage you to drop back. And Dibble's survey is an important tool for when to drop back, how far to drop back, how to make decisions about what a goal might be for those students. Did that help? Okay, excellent. Excellent question. Any other questions? Yeah.
So, on her question, does that mean at the benchmark time, go back to the grade level material?
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you asked that question. Thank you. And the answer is no. Now, you'll notice I try to give a short answer to this, and then I'll try to elaborate about it. So the short answer is no. For the benchmark assessment, I want to assess that student on grade level material. This tells me where the student is compared to where I want them to get to for their grade level placement. So there's two parts to the answer. For benchmark, I'm going to use grade level material. If a student was here at benchmark, I need to know that for that student. For progress monitoring and making ongoing formative decisions, I will drop back to instructional level material for that student. Perfect question. Did that help? Does that sort of make that distinction?
Just to validate what we've been doing and with our special education, we benchmark, even for those students with IEPs, we benchmark at grade level, and then progress monitor at instructional level. Even for those students that would that's appropriate.
Excellent question and comment. And so I try to remember to rephrase the question because I have a TV audience as well. So the question was that just to double check, for our students who are in special education, they have an IEP goal in reading. They have very low skills, some of them. Even for those students in special ed with an IEP in reading, we use the benchmark assessment at grade level that tells us where they are compared to their grade level expectations. And then we use progress monitoring at instructional level that may be out of grade level assessment, maybe a couple of years below. Is that desirable? Absolutely, and high five. Yep, that's exactly the way I would recommend that DIBELS be used. Even for those students in special ed, a part of my charge is to know where that student is compared to where they should be. I want never to lose track of where it is they should be at. And that benchmark assessment using grade level material tells me that level of skills that they are at. Out of level progress monitoring helps me make good educational decisions. And on that note, I'd like us to take a 15-minute break and then reconvene. Thank you all. So great questions. Thank you all so much. Consistent with the vision of that law, consistent with the vision of RTI, consistent with this vision of changing outcomes for students. And the particular decision model that we advocate, we call outcomes driven. That means that the outcome that we get to is more important than whether or not I like it. It's more important even than whether or not it is research-based. Is it changing the outcome for Jessica? If we want all of our children to reach these goals, then we have to have a model that supports each child to reach these goals. This is a vision of all and each getting to that goal. So now what I want to do is I want to unpack that model some more. I want you to hold the vision of the model. Hold the vision of where are we? Where do we want to get to? What course should I follow? Do I need to make a change? That's essentially our outcomes-driven model. And I want to unpack some of these a bit more. As I do this, I will be presenting, this is sort of the outcomes-driven model greatest hits. I'm sort of channeling like Fleetwood Mac hits. So I'm going to hit what I think are sort of high points or sort of vision of this, of using Dibble's data to make these decisions. Please be aware, in each one of these things that I'm going to go through, I could elaborate on nuances of that. Elisa knows I could probably elaborate for quite some time in coming up with that. Oh, and we're checking temperature. That's excellent. And you happen to be checking it during the 5 minutes where it's actually comfortable. Am I right? Yeah. So if we can, it's sometimes hard to keep it like that with the units. So I'm going to go through and unpack each one of these. So an identifying need for support. Key themes are universal screening. Not just the kids we're worried about, but all kids, because some of the reasons for concern are hidden. We're not aware unless I actually ask. So I want to be able to check that. I want that universal screening to tell me how much support a student is likely to need, and help me to target which basic early literacy skills we're going to go from. So as I do that, a critical part of this is going to be our classroom report. Here is a sample classroom report, and I'm going to show you this. This one is actually from Dibble's Net, and as you are a Dibble's user, you might be a paper and pencil user using Dibble's Net. You might be an Amplify user using a mobile device. It's all Dibble's. It's all exactly the same. And in fact, this was a key design point of the mobile device. We charged them with making it be just like paper and pencil Dibble's to give the same information in the same way. So these are two different ways that you can do it, but they are giving you the same information. Here's a report from Dibble's Net, and it's a class list report. It gives me all of the students in my class, and I'm going to focus first on the Dibble's composite score. This gives me an overall statement of where is the student in their overall reading proficiency. But it's also going to help me look at specific skill areas or specific components. So I'm going to first look at the composite, then I'm going to look at components, is the basic idea. I'm going to use here a color coding to tell me really quickly and visually how my students are doing. And green means at or above benchmark. They're likely to need core support. Yellow means below benchmark, likely to need strategic support. Red is a signal, it's my danger zone. They're well below benchmark, likely to need intensive support. So I can see here that Rose, Miguel, and Karina are likely to need additional support. They're not green. At a certain level, this all comes down to green, not green, right? On track, gonna need some kind of support. Now, as I look at that, Rose and Miguel, they're probably gonna need more intensive support. And that's signaled by them being in the danger zone as opposed to the yellow zone or below benchmark. Now, as I look at that, I can look at how they're doing and notice Miguel and Karina. Miguel is actually at or above benchmark on correct letter sounds. Karina is below benchmark. But really, they're only 1 point different, right? You got to draw a line somewhere, but Miguel is on 1 point on one side of that line, and Karina is 1 point on the other. They have pretty similar skills. Roland has more difficulty with letter sound, but I got to tell you, looking at these three kids, all of them are going to need letter sound correspondence. Also, all of them share that they're not strong on letter sounds, and really are not able to put them together to form a word. These are two critical pieces of the alphabetic principle. So this is really giving me a target of where I want my instructional emphasis to be. This is telling me they need support. This is helping me to guide their instruction. As I look at their phonemic awareness, Rose and Karina are at or above benchmark. Miguel is below, but not like out of the range. Miguel is really more consistent. I might want to be reviewing phonemic awareness, but it's not going to be a major target of my instruction. Really, my instruction is going to be focused letter sound and using that to decode words and to be able to read a word. It's going to be a critical piece for my instructional planning. Now, are there other students where they're at or above benchmark, but there are what I would describe as a target of opportunity for us to improve, adjust our instruction? I like to think of a target of opportunity. How many of you want better outcomes for your students? Right? I want better outcomes. Just tell me what would be an area that I could work on to improve outcomes? What would be a target of opportunity? Now, these students are all at or above benchmark, so I'm not talking about putting these students in intervention necessarily. I'm going to do something that meets their needs, but this might be in terms of differentiated support within the core. This might be in terms of really focusing my core in a particular way. Now, as I look at this, I know that Samuel, Maria, Daniel, Savannah, Rachel, there's actually quite a lot of these kids, yes? This is not like one or two. I've got, what do I got here? About 5 kids with a very similar pattern, right? When I see 5 kids with a similar pattern, I'm thinking, what am I doing in my instruction where 5 kids are not getting a particular core idea? I might think, how can I provide support to those 5 kids? I might think, what can I do for all of my kids to help build skills in a particular area? And what do I notice about those 5 kids? Well, like, I'm at or above benchmark on correct letter sounds for all 5. See that? And each of them has 0 whole words read. See that? That's telling me, am I worried about their letter sound knowledge? No, they're at or above benchmark. But are they using their letter sound to read words? Nope. And at a certain level, you guys are Dibbles testers. You've been doing Dibbles, yes?
Yes.
Yes. And you know that when you get a kid who has like 73, 78 correct letter sounds and 0 whole words read, that means we practice letter sounds really a lot. But man, they're getting 73 in a really goofy way. It's hard to get to 73 if you're not reading the words. From reading the words, 73 is really easy. Tom Dossett, tough catch, right? You just read the words and just check, tick, 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 tick. Each one of those going up by 3. But if I'm getting to 73 by not reading words, just doing letter sounds, that looks somewhat like this. Right? And we call that the Dibbles hop. You try to avoid the Dibbles hop. What we're doing is learning letter sounds as an isolated splinter skill that has nothing to do with reading. Sometimes I am reading, sometimes I do letter sounds. These are not connected. We're not learning something that is about reading and about how it works. This is something we can do something about. We can teach in such a way that letter sounds is how reading works. It's a critical piece of the decoding. That I have 5 of them, and also that I have a number that are like 2s, mean this is a target of opportunity. What could I do to help my kids get how reading works better? Teach them about that blending piece. Sometimes it's called phonological recoding. I don't care what it is, but it's about using letter sounds to read the word. These are going to be kids. Have you had kids like this? And they come to a word that you don't know, and you say, well, sound it out. And they go, say it fast. Ka-ata. Well, what word is it? Bill.
Yes.
And you're going like, how can you say Bill? It doesn't even have a k in it. This is a skill that can be taught, can be learned, must be learned if kids are going to become proficient readers. So we've identified a target of opportunity is differentiated support within the core. I'm not talking about putting these kids in intervention, but I'm saying we need to do something and guide our core instruction for this. This is the Dibble's net version of the report, and you see how I can quickly glance at where kids are. I can target who needs support. I can quickly look at the pattern of skills to guide the support that I'm providing to both of those. This is what it looks like in the class version. And it looks somewhat different, but it is the same information, and we can use it in the same way to make decisions. So if you were looking at this, which students would you target as likely to need additional support in this picture? Olivia and Elizabeth. And I noticed that took you a long time and very careful analysis to come to that conclusion. Dibbles is all about supporting professionals to make good decisions quickly and efficiently. I don't want you to have to agonize your way through this, but this is the professional judgment. What if I said, Olivia, that teacher goes, Olivia, oh, she's like my best reader. I'm not worried about Olivia. What would you do? I would retest. I would want to validate that need for support decision. In this, they're telling me at or above benchmark in green, well below in red, below in yellow. So even for my Cheryl and Josephina, who are at or above benchmark, is there a target of opportunity we might want to make sure we're addressing with our differentiated core? Do they both share something? Yeah, this whole piece about letter sounds and whole words read is something that we would really want to be able to target. Now, they're both pretty accurate at reading words. This pattern may indicate that they're using more of a sight word or a whole word approach as opposed to having well-developed phonics and word attack skills. This might be fine for right now, but can be a danger sign for the future. So this is giving me a target of opportunity for me to differentiate my core, is the idea. If I have any questions about a student's skill, we should validate our need for support. Notice how I'm walking my way through this and sort of unpacking this. All of these reports, all of these decisions are there for a purpose. So to validate need for support, there are two critical issues for you to think about. First, are we doing dibbles in the right way? If you're not doing dibbles using standardized directions and doing it with fidelity, I can't make good decisions. So you need to check if it's done with fidelity. Second, I want to make sure it's not due to an unusual day or unusual conditions. I want to make a good decision for that student. So in looking at these two, I want to look first at, is it done the way it's designed to be done? If it's not done using standardized procedures, I don't know what the scores mean. It's critical we're doing it in the way it's designed to be done. If you're not using the standardized scoring rules, then you're doing dibbles simply as a checkoff. Yep, did you do your dibbles? Yep, I did my dibbles, but it's not really helping us make decisions. I'm not really making a difference. It becomes just procedure that I do. I need to make sure all dibbles testers are trained. Ooh, that's kind of hard to do. Do you want me to send all of them to Oregon to be trained by Roland? Yes, please. I would enjoy that. No, that's really not going to happen. But I do want your school to have a dibbles mentor. Are you dibbles mentors? We could be. I would really like you to be dibbles mentors. And a dibbles mentor, part of it is training others, but it's larger than that. So this is bigger than trainer. Yeah, this is about mentoring others. I'll give you information about becoming a dibbles mentor at the end. But dibbles mentors also can look at whether or not they're trained and can use the assessment accuracy checklist. So you have to know what the dibbles scores mean. It makes me think of, if it doesn't say Sunkist, you don't know what's inside. Anybody remember that commercial? All of my words of wisdom come from rock and roll songs or old commercials. So this is the old commercial about Sunkist. Their old commercial was, it doesn't say Sunkist, you don't know what's inside. And so here's two boys, and here's an orange that doesn't say Sunkist. And inside is, so anyway. Also, look for weird data and double check that it's accurate. If you get something that's like some weird pattern for a student, and you look at that student and you go, whoa, man, that's goofy. I've never seen something like that before. Well, then double check and make sure that it's actually correct.
That's just like whenever we've done after the kids have learned to blend, and they've got that whole word read, and we've seen where their phonics segmentation scores have dropped, but the other scores went up. But we wasn't worried about it because we knew the reasoning behind it.
And that makes sense to me. So the question was, we see a regular pattern as students are developing correct letter sounds and whole words read. So they're learning to blend those into words. Sometimes we see their phoneme segmentation fluency drop a little bit. And we're not as worried because we know that they had it and they're really on track about it. Yes. And I would agree with that. I'm less worried about that pattern, and we do sometimes see that pattern. But I would take that information as saying, you know, this is good, and I understand why, but I might want to do a strategic review of phonemic awareness to keep phonemic awareness in play. It's not that phonemic awareness goes away. I still need it, and this is a piece of that encoding. Remember, encoding is one of our crucial skills. That's going from a word like cat to the written form, and it's kind of helpful when you're writing and when you're spelling. So that cat is made up of at, oh, I can write it. So I don't, even though it might go down and even though I might feel pretty much okay about that, I might want to review phonemic awareness in a targeted way to keep them up there as well. Key to this is our assessment accuracy checklist. And this is something where the DIBELS lead person, whoever is lead for your DIBELS team, and every team should have a team leader. It's like, this is DIBELS tester to team leader, come in. This is team leader, yes, go ahead. You need a team leader. And team leader sets the standard. And team leader should check all of the testers periodically and just make sure they're following all of the standardized procedures correctly. Are they doing the standardized directions? Are they timing accurately? Are they using the scoring rules correctly? And there's a list of these. These are all in the DIBELS Next Assessment Manual. For an individual student, retest on alternate forums, make sure you're reasonably confident about where we start. So here is Tabitha. On her benchmark assessment, she had 65 words correct. I wanted to say, am I really pretty sure about that score? So I retested Tabitha. She got a 67, 61, 64. I go, yep, this is a pretty good estimate of where her skills are. And that's, all of this is a part of that validating need for support. Any questions about validating need for support? After I validate that need, then I'm all done, right? No, I need to, after I validate need for support, I need to make a plan about what I'm going to do. I'm going to plan and implement that support. I've identified, I've validated, plan and implement. I know I'm doing DIBELS in the right way. I know that the score is representing Tabitha's skills. Next, I need to make a plan. As I make this plan, I want to focus on which basic early literacy skill. I'm going to choose a target of opportunity for that student. If a student is strong in phonemic awareness, they're strong in basic phonics in the alphabetic principle, but they're low on word reading and decoding, then word reading and decoding becomes my target of opportunity that I'm going to focus on. So I want to focus on a particular area for each student. I want to establish an individual learning goal. I want that goal to represent meaningful, ambitious, and attainable progress. This sounds like a job for pathways of progress. And I have told you before just how excited I am to be here and to be sharing this work in the context of SB 33, and partly because I get to introduce and talk about pathways of progress. This is, for us, a very exciting capacity within DIBELS to help in setting goals that are meaningful, ambitious, and attainable. Then I also want to select a generally effective research-based intervention or instruction that I'm going to provide. These are the three critical pieces of a plan. And I want to discuss, in particular, setting goals, choosing target areas, and I'm going to do that in the context of three children. Here is Tabitha. Studio audience and TV audience, I want you to meet Tabitha. Tabitha, I want you to meet my friends in the studio and TV audience. So Tabitha is a third grade student. Tabitha, at the beginning of the year, is likely to need strategic support. And here is the pattern of skills for her at the beginning of the year. Here's her composite, and I'm using color to show which level she's at. So on the composite, she is below benchmark. On Dorf words correct, she's below benchmark. Her accuracy is actually quite high. She's at or above benchmark on accuracy at 96%. Her talking about she has read was below benchmark at 14, rating of 1 on retail quality of response, and 6 on a day's adjusted score. Now for Tabitha, I want to have a goal for her that will be meaningful. And as I talk about a meaningful goal, I want to build her skills as a proficient reader. And I'm going to focus on reading for meaning at an adequate rate with a high degree of accuracy. I think that there's 3 parts to being a proficient reader. And by the way, I really resonate with Common Core as they really focus on those 3 parts as well. And I want all 3. So for Tabitha, is she reading for meaning? She's not on track. I'm going to give her an empty square for that one. Is she reading at an adequate rate? That's going to be words correct, number per moment, or number per minute. She's not reading yet at an adequate rate. Notice I'm not talking about like speed reading. I'm talking about reading at an adequate rate. Is she reading with a high degree of accuracy? Yes. So I'm going to give her a check and 2 empties. So on this one, we're going to target what? I want to target basic early literacy skills. Which areas in particular would be targets of opportunity for Tabitha? Reading for meaning, being at an adequate rate, right? I want to maintain her high degree of accuracy. But let's shoot for 100. That's not really a goal for Tabitha right now. It's really about building rate and reading for meaning. So I want a goal that will be meaningful, attainable, ambitious. I want to be able to evaluate her progress. Here's Jacqueline. Jacqueline is another student. She is likely to need intensive support. At the beginning of the year, she is well below benchmark. I've signaled that with a red blur. Words correct is below benchmark. Accuracy is well below benchmark at 86. But her retail is 42, and her retail quality is rated as a 3. This girl can talk about what she has read. She's not reading very much, and she's struggling with a lot of the words. But man, she's able to infer a lot about what is going on, isn't she? So she's able to talk about it really pretty well. So I'm not concerned about her comprehension. Or am I? With the days, this is going to be silent reading for meaning. This is well below benchmark. So she seems to have well-developed verbal skills. She is getting meaning, but I'm not convinced that she's able to really get meaning from what she has read. She may have a lot of background knowledge, and if she can get the gist, she can talk about that thing, but she may not be really picking up what that passage is saying. Could be. So, is she reading for meaning? I'm not going to give her a checked box here. I'm worried really about this. I want both to be on track before I'm convinced she's reading for meaning. Is she reading at an adequate rate? No, she is not. Is she reading with a high degree of accuracy? No, she is not. So she really needs all 3. Now, notice, coincidentally, that her beginning of year words correct was 65, just the same as Tabitha. What a coincidence. What I wanted to show, it's not actually a coincidence, I chose them deliberately. These are 2 real patterns of scores from 2 real students that I saw, not Tabitha and Jacqueline. I made up the names, and it's not exactly it, but it's that pattern of scores to show Tabitha's needs and Dylan's needs are different, even though they have the same words correct score. So I want a goal that is appropriate for Jacqueline. I want you also to consider Renee. Renee is a third student. Renee is at or above benchmark at the beginning of the year. She's likely to need core support. She's at 269 on the composite, at or above benchmark. But look, she has the same words correct. Renee's needs are going to be very different from Jacqueline's, aren't they? She's reading pretty accurately. Is she reading for meaning? Yeah, she's doing pretty well. Is she reading at an adequate rate? No. Is she reading with a high degree of accuracy? Yes. Well, that's 2 out of 3. Isn't that pretty good? And I like to say, it's like my friends say about me. You know that Roland. Tall, dark, and well, 2 out of 3 is not bad. But actually, for Renee, we need all 3. Oh, but I don't think so. I think as long as the student is reading for meaning with a high degree of accuracy, that rate doesn't matter. Try saying that to one of our graduate students who has to read 3 chapters by tomorrow. Rate matters. And it doesn't have to be graduate students. It could be like 8th graders who are have to read in the content area by tomorrow. Rate matters. It's not the only thing. Which thing do I want? All 3 things. I want a component, a goal that represents all 3. And I want a basis to evaluate Renee's progress. Now, my goal for Renee is likely to be different from my goal from Jacqueline. Yes?
Yes.
They have different needs. It doesn't make sense to set the same goal for Jacqueline as for Renee. I'm making a point here and emphasizing it because this is one of the things Pathways of Progress helps me to do. So in Pathways of Progress, I'm just particularly excited to share about Pathways of Progress here. And I think I'm going to be able to show you this live if my internet connection is still live. We'll have to see if this actually works. I'm going to talk about a pathway of progress as at one of 5 different levels. Pathway number 5 is going to be well above typical progress. It's going to be at the 80th percentile of progress or above. I'm going to signal well above typical progress with the color blue, pathway number 5, and 5-star rating for that progress. Above typical progress will be the 60th to 79th percentile, pathway number 4, and a 4-star rate of progress. Typical progress would be right in the middle, between the 40th and 59th percentile, pathway number 3, 3 stars. Notice, typical and above typical are both green, light green, dark green, sort of the idea. This is green, this is more green, is sort of the idea. Below typical progress would be between the 20th and 39th percentile of progress, pathway number 2 and 2 stars. 1 star would be below the 20th percentile, pathway number 1, and 1 star is sort of the idea here. So how do I get those pathways of progress? And you don't have to get the science behind how I do this. I can't resist sharing a little bit of it with you, just so you know A, this is not just Roland picking numbers, that there's actually a basis for these numbers. B, because I just have so much fun talking about the data and the science behind that, I can't resist doing it. So what I do is I compare Tabitha with other students who started with the same level of initial skills. So this is a picture that shows 42,000 students and their beginning of year Dibble score and their end of year Dibbles composite. So here's beginning year composite, here's the end of the year composite. In other words, when you start here, where do you get to here? And when I set the pathway of progress, I'm going to look just at the other students who started at the same level of initial skills as Tabitha. So I'm going to compare to other students who started with a 205. Here's the 20th percentile, and if you're below that, that would be well below typical. That's a score of 284 or below. Here is the 40th percentile. It's the lowest level of typical. Between light green and yellow lines within that slice is below typical progress. That's going to be 285 to 316. Here is dark green. That's going to be the 60th. Light green is the 40th. In between those two lines would be typical progress. That's going to be 317 to 346. Cute? It's quite cute. Only Roland can call a scatter plot cute, but here's above typical and well above typical progress. Notice this is driven by Tabitha's beginning of year composite score. I can do the same thing for each of the Dibbles components. Here I'm using Dorf words correct, but I can do the same thing for each of the component measures. So here, looking at only the students who started with 205 composite at beginning of the year. Did you like that? Like I'm making all the other students go away. And there were 108 students who started with the same composite as Tabitha. Here's the 20th, 40th, 60th, 80th percentile. Here's the actual scores that correspond to each of those pathways. Now, I can use those pathways to identify what would be typical progress in Dorf words correct compared to other students who started with the same level of initial reading skills as Tabitha. Now, if you have questions, raise them, or I'm going to sort of keep going. But if you have a question, it's going to make more sense as I show what happens next. So I use this to identify the pathway outcomes. Here they are. So for Tabitha, here are the different pathways. Here I have placed those pathways onto my progress monitoring form for Tabitha. Here's her initial score of 65. Here are the pathways, well above typical, typical, below typical, well below typical for Tabitha. I'm going to use this information to set a goal for Tabitha. I'm going to use that information with the end of year benchmark goal and the cut point for risk. So this horizontal green line is the end of the year benchmark goal. This line is cut point for risk. She's currently below benchmark. She's in that yellow zone. So I'm going to set a goal for her using the benchmark goal and the pathway of progress. If I set a goal for Tabitha that would be typical progress, it would be in this range right here. she'd be going from the yellow zone to the yellow zone. This is called not making a difference in the prediction of the future. I'm not changing the future for Tabitha. I want to choose a goal that reaches the benchmark if I can. It could be above typical or well above typical would reach that benchmark goal. These pathways, if I have the scores, I can plot the pathways. And I showed you this just to show that if you are a Dibbles paper and pencil user, you can plot the pathways really pretty easily. I just plotted those 5 points and drew a line in between them. If you're a Dibbles Net user, those pathways are drawn on our progress monitoring just like this. If you are an M-Class Amplify user, Amplify will be implementing pathways. I'm hopeful this will be for the 2014-2015 year, but I don't have a firm timeline on it. But the idea is that these will be drawn so I can see where my benchmark goal is, where the different pathways of progress are, so it becomes an easy frame of reference for decision making. When I'm using those pathways, I desire a goal that will be meaningful. I'm going to use where the benchmark goal is to help me talk about what would be a meaningful goal. I also want a goal that will be ambitious. So as I'm looking at the pathways, I would say that typical, below typical, and well below typical are just not suitably ambitious for Tabitha. Tabitha is likely to need support. Now notice, I am taking a professional position here. I am making a professional judgment, a professional recommendation. I'm saying for Tabitha, typical progress is just not enough. This, to me, goes with a decision that Tabitha is likely to need support. The whole idea of providing support is to enable progress that is more than typical. To me, this is what providing support means, that I'm going to go a step up from typical. This is a professional judgment that I am making. Elisa might have a different judgment from me. On this judgment, I'd actually argue Elisa, but this is intended to be a professional judgment, is the idea. I want pathways to help us make good judgments, but this is still a professional judgment that we make. For Renee, remember Renee was above benchmark. Typical progress might be fine for a student who is above benchmark. But for Tabitha, who is below and likely to need support, I would encourage us not to be satisfied with typical. Make sense?
Yes.
I would also say above typical progress might not be attainable. Notice I said might not. I'm not saying it's not attainable. I'm not saying necessarily that it is. To me, this is very much about a professional judgment. I know some interventionists for whom well above typical progress is what they usually accomplish. If I know that I have the skills, the coaching, the interventions, the school support to regularly get above typical progress for my students, then set a goal there. It's a professional judgment that we make. But if I know that, geez, I'm really working hard on this, and on a good day I can do above typical, but well above typical, I'm not sure I've got the skill set and the tools and the support that will help me to get there, then maybe above typical. See what I mean? So this is intended to inform a professional judgment. This is not intended to be mechanical and make the judgment for you, but to give a frame of reference to help make that judgment. I wonder if I could put bricks into there. But follow the yellow brick road, right? It's not so ambitious that it may not be attainable. It's not so attainable that it's not suitably ambitious. This is a good balance of ambitious and attainable. Now, where should your goal be within there? Well, it's a professional judgment. I might choose one place, Danielle might choose another place. But this tells you sort of a sweet spot in that balance of attainable and ambitious, right? So I wanted to show you what this might look like. And I wanted to illustrate our pathways of progress, goal setting utility. Uh-oh, where'd my... I may have to log on to it again. I hope I'm still live. Dibble's Net. There we go. So this is actually what it looks like. And those of you who have ever done presentations where you're actually using a live web resource know that this is often a recipe for disaster. Stephen Jobs has great video clips of meltdowns where he's trying to do this. So I have my fingers crossed and see if this will work. If you will bring up your browser in Dibble's Net, then we will be able to do that. And I will get you to that place. Thank you so much. I was going to forget about that completely. But we are going to be able to show this to remote users. And there you go. And I will log us in. There we go. Okay. And so the first thing now, our TV audience should be able to see what our studio audience is seeing, yes? Thank you so much.
They don't also know about this.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, we use Amplify, the Amplify. So do you have access to Dibble's Net?
Actually,
Separate entities.
There are two separate entities, but Amplify is implementing this goal-setting utility. It will look different. It always does. It will probably, honesty, look better, be easier to use, and have even more features. Amplify has a way of doing that, but it will accomplish the same purpose. So you'll get something that will look better and be easier, but accomplish the same purpose is what's going to happen. So Dibble's Net is what you could be using if you are a paper and pencil user. It's going to have similar capability when implemented in M-Class and Amplify. And I would anticipate for the 2014-15 year, but I do not have a firm timeline thereof. If you see this as exciting and valuable, pass it on to your M-class representative. Yeah. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on data entry, and then this allows me to enter progress monitoring scores. I'm going to go to pathways of progress.
Now, pathways of progress is take the scores that we have already done, like for the oral reading. It's not any pathway. It's not more testing or more assessment. It's just taking what we've already done and doing something else with it.
Yes, pathways of progress doesn't require that you retest or do a different test. It gives you a frame of reference to set an individual learning goal and to evaluate individual progress toward that goal. So here's what it's going to look like. I want to set a goal for Tabitha, Jacqueline, and Renee. Those goals should be different because they have different patterns. I want my goals to be meaningful. I want them to be meaningful and attainable and ambitious. So those are my three things. I like things that come in threes. Have you noticed this? Roland has this thing about things that come in threes. It's basically because I've determined that important things in the world come in threes. And did you know, for example, that there's basically only three kinds of people in the world? Did you know that? All the different people, there's really only three kinds. Those who can count and those who can't. I'm trying to decide what kind I am. So I want a pathway of progress that is going to be meaningful, attainable, and ambitious. I want to be able to quickly and efficiently set that pathway for all of my students. So I'm going to choose Sample School 2013-14, and I'm going to choose third grade year. So when I choose third grade, then I'm going to submit. And I'm going to choose as my class my third grade class. And this should work. Now, this will be entertaining because we'll both be accessing the same student at the same time. So I may not press submit, and I may let you do the press submit. Okay? He says hopefully. We'll see if these are the conditions when any web resources, if it's going to break, it's going to break under these conditions. So we'll see how it works. But I'm going to submit. And this brings me up my class list report. And in this class list report, it gives me some guidance. This is very brief guidance on setting goals. That will be more in sort of documentation about this, but it's a very brief setup. And it tells me I'm going to use this code. If it's a solid box, it means at or above benchmark. If it's a partially filled box, it means below benchmark. If it is an empty box, it means no GOTS. It means well below benchmark in that skill area. Then here are each of the students in my class, and here's their beginning of the year score. So I can see Jacqueline was well below benchmark at beginning of year. Sorry about that. You might want to, there isn't another place I can move unless I move like over here, and that wouldn't work. Here's Tabitha, and I'm going to look at Tabitha first. So I'm actually going to scroll down a little bit so that Tabitha is at the top. So here's Tabitha. Here's her beginning of year skills and her remember, she was really doing okay for her accuracy. Now, when I click on Tabitha, she becomes activated. So now I can set a goal for Tabitha. My purpose on this, still okay, we haven't broken yet. My purpose on this is to provide a tool to help educators make individual professional judgments, but make them professionally, efficiently, and easily. So I don't want to spend all day doing this, is the idea. Hey, this is cool, isn't it? And so now I'm going to set a goal for Tabitha. And I can either click on pathway or click in the box. Either one shows me the different pathways. So here are the scores that correspond to different pathways of progress. For Tabitha, and here's the default is sort of like in the middle of each pathway. Now for Tabitha, I'm going to choose a goal that represents what kind of progress? Should I choose typical? You think I should choose above? Would that be ambitious? Would that be attainable? So I'm going to choose above typical progress, and that says a goal of 103, and that would actually reach the benchmark goal. See how it's giving? So I know that it is meaningful, it reaches the benchmark goal, it is attainable, and it is ambitious. Is that cool? Now, actually, I have to tell you, that would sort of just barely be at or above the goal. You know, professionally, I'd rather not be just barely there. I'd rather be a little bit more solidly there. Like, just barely there, I call them barely benchmark or a fragile benchmark, you know? So I'd actually like to be a bit more ambitious. I'd like to be at a 108. That's still above typical. I've just moved to the upper end of that range. And this came from me thinking about this professionally. I'm making my professional judgment. Elisa says, you know, I'm just fine with that 103. Danielle says, oh man, you don't understand. I have got a powerful research-based intervention at my fingertips. I can do well above typical. So I'm going to set a well above typical goal. I encourage these professional judgments. That's the point of this utility, is to make an informed professional judgment. Well, I'm going to go for 200. Oh, come on, get real. Right? This is not attainable, is the idea. Then I also want to make a goal for accuracy. Now, she's already at 90% accurate. You know, I'm going to choose 97, the default, and actually that would be appropriate accuracy for pathway 4 or 5. It's only a little bit more accurate than she is now, but that's not really my focus with her. For a year, if I can maintain that level of accuracy, I would be a happy camper. I can also choose retail. And I could think about this more, but just to show efficiency, I'm going to choose above typical at 45. And for days, I'm also going to choose above typical. That means I'm going to go from a 6 to a 20. Notice that with this goal, she would be at or above benchmark in each area. Her composite would be at or above benchmark. It represents above typical progress. For Tabitha, this would be a goal that would represent a meaningful, attainable, and ambitious goal. Now, I'm not going to push save. Danielle's going to push save, and we're going to see if this works. I'm just going to go back to the menu. Did you push save? And I'm going to see if I go there, again, it should show up. He says, hopefully. It's worked. Woo! So now it's been set, and it's And it remembers that goal then for Tabitha and will set that goal on progress monitoring. Was this cool? Is anybody salivating? I'm just checking. I'm just really, really thrilled about being able to do this. So that sort of illustrates how I would go about setting this for Tabitha. And then for Tabitha, this information, here's my goal. See it in the boxes? And here's her composite. And for Tabitha, this means a goal. By the end of the year, Tabitha will read grade level text orally. Now, this is a goal for on grade level. If I'm doing out of grade level progress monitoring, then this would change what my goal is here, right? But this says I'm on grade level at a rate of 108 or more words correct with 97% accuracy, and be able to talk about what she has read with at least 45 words about the passage, and she'll read grade level text silently for meaning with at least 20 days adjusted score. Here's where she is. Here's my goal. It represents reading for meaning at an adequate rate with a high degree of accuracy. I could have this goal relatively easy for all of the students in my class. What questions do you have about Tabitha? I'm going to show you Jacqueline and Renee next.
I have a question about, in general, the pathways. Once you go to that, is it going to have just your children that need support, or is it going to have all of your children?
It will have all of your children. So, for example, Renee is at or above benchmark. This provides a framework for us to have an individual learning goal, not just for our students who need support, but actually for all of our students in a very quick and efficient manner. I know what my goal is going to be for all of my students. Yeah.
I'm a resource teacher, so immediately I go to my IEP and think of my goal.
Think this could be an IEP goal?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm liking this.
Yeah, this could work out really well. And where I chose the classroom, in all of the data systems, you can have like a primary classroom or a secondary classroom that's your intervention group. So you could pull up your intervention kids and establish that goal. And once it's in a data system, the principal, the coach, the consultant could pull up any of the students and see what that student's goal is. Think this might be helpful for parent-teacher conferences? Think this might be helpful for showing a student what it is we need to do? A lot of the goals around CBM and progress monitoring are goals only for words correct. Once you see this goal, all those other goals are unsatisfying. This is not just about words correct, but it's words correct with a high degree of accuracy and being able to read meaning. I want a goal that represents all three parts. Tall, dark, well, 2 out of 3 is not bad. Nope, I need all 3 pieces of this. Are we drooling now?
You may have already said this, but is the typical pathway the benchmark?
No, typical is not necessarily benchmark. And as I showed this I can show this for Tabitha. So here's what it would look like. Here are the pathways. Here's the goal I set. Remember at the upper end at above typical? Look where typical is for Tabitha. Here's typical progress. If Tabitha makes typical progress, will she reach the benchmark goal at the end of the year? She will not. If I'm going to reach that goal, I need to be above typical. See that?
Yeah, so I'm just already going to, okay, if I have a kid in the red, then how far up do I need to go? And is that going to get him where I need to be? Or are you talking about being more kind of below that to, and like you said, an attainable goal for him at that time?
Exactly. So the question was, and if I forget to repeat it for the TV audience, you can prompt me, but the question was, so I have a student who is in the red zone at the beginning of the year. Where would I want to set a goal for that student? Now, this student might be like Jacqueline, and so we'll take a look at Jacqueline next. Jacqueline was well below benchmark on the composite. Her oral reading fluency was still at 65. And so I might set one set of goals, but I might have a student who's not just in the red zone, but they're really in the danger zone. And for that student, reaching the benchmark goal might be meaningful, it might be ambitious, but it's just not attainable within 1 year. For that student, as an educator, I might set an ambitious, attainable, meaningful goal. They might still be in the red, but my goal would be a whole lot less red than they were at the beginning of the year. And I might be able to meet that goal and be celebrated for that success, even though he's still in the red zone, right? That's one of the reasons we develop pathways. Shoot for the benchmark.
I realize that pushing some of those kids past beyond their frustration level.
Well, and you know, we want to be ambitious, but we don't want to lose them either.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm trying to increase my running. It's a continuing progress. I'm going to be really pleased if I can do it. I've done like 13 days in a row, and then I'm struggling. I'd really like to do this like on a regular basis. And it might not be a good goal for me to run a marathon this summer. Right? I'm just saying, I admire marathon runners so much. This may not be a really good goal for me. It's going to lead to injury, frustration. Lisa can do it. She's a marathon runner. Roland, maybe some year, not happening this summer. But I'll be really happy if I can do better. So I want to choose an ambitious goal for Tabitha. What about Jacqueline? Now, Jacqueline, she is well below benchmark at the beginning of the year. This is really not about building accuracy for Jacqueline. Well, actually, I can show you. We can set a goal for Jacqueline. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to my goal-setting utility. Here was Tabitha. Here's Jacqueline. I click on Jacqueline. Jacqueline is activated. She's at 65. I'm going to set above typical progress to a 95. I would think about this somewhat more for each one. Oh, did we lose it?